Gave my parents a luxurious one-week trip to Europe with me, but they sent my sister in my place without asking. Saved for years to take my parents to Europe, only to be replaced by my spoiled sister. Imagine saving for years to give your parents the trip of a lifetime, only to find out they replaced you at the last second. That's exactly what happened to me. But here's the twist: they never saw my revenge coming. They landed in a foreign country expecting luxury, only to be stranded, humiliated, and desperate for help. And let me tell you, I made them feel every ounce of betrayal they put me through. Want to know how I pulled it off? Stick around, because this story is about to get insane. I sat in my car outside my parents' house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The early morning air was crisp, the sky still tinged with the last remnants of dawn, and for a brief moment, I let myself believe that today would be everything I had imagined. 3 years. 3 long years of working overtime, cutting back on every unnecessary expense, saying no to weekend trips with friends just so I could make this moment happen. A dream vacation, first-class flights, luxury hotels, guided tours, every single detail meticulously planned to give my parents the experience of a lifetime. A way to thank them for everything they had done for me, or at least, that's what I had told myself. But deep down, if I was really honest, I had been hoping for something more. I had been hoping that, just this once, they would see me, that they would understand how much I had sacrificed, how much I loved them, how much I wanted to feel like I truly belonged. I took a deep breath and reached for my phone, checking the time. 6:00 a.m. on the dot. Perfect timing. I wanted to be the one to pick them up, to be the one standing there when they saw the tickets, to see their faces light up with excitement and gratitude. This was supposed to be a moment we would talk about for years, a core memory, something that would finally make me feel like I mattered. But the second the front door opened, the world I had built in my mind collapsed like a house of cards. Mom stepped out first, smiling, dragging a large suitcase behind her. My heart swelled for a split second, until I saw the second figure step out of the house, suitcase in tow, a smug grin plastered on his face. Ethan, my younger brother, the golden child, the one who had never worked for anything, who had always found a way to get exactly what he wanted with minimal effort. And right now he was standing there, looking way too comfortable, way too ready for a trip he had no business being part of. My stomach churned. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice carefully measured, even though I could already feel the warning bells blaring in my head. Mom's smile didn't falter, but there was a forced brightness to it, like she was trying to soften a blow before delivering it. "Oh, sweetheart, we decided that Ethan should go instead of you. He really needs this trip." The words hit like a slap. I blinked, waiting for my brain to catch up, waiting for someone to laugh, to tell me this was some kind of sick joke. But no one did. "Instead of me?" I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. Dad stepped out next, avoiding my gaze, shifting uncomfortably as if he already knew this conversation wouldn't go well. He lifted his suitcase, placing it next to Ethan's like this was all perfectly normal. Mom sighed, reaching out to pat my arm like I was a child who needed to be reasoned with. "Honey, you work so hard. You can always take another trip later." But Ethan, he's been under so much pressure lately. He really needs a break. A break. Ethan. The same Ethan who had spent the last 6 months unemployed, whining about how unfair the job market was while playing video games in our parents' basement. The same Ethan who had never lifted a finger to help anyone unless there was something in it for him. He needed a break? Ethan smirked, adjusting the strap of his backpack like he had won some kind of contest. "Thanks for understanding, Liv. This really means a lot to me." My pulse roared in my ears. The sheer audacity of it all made me dizzy. I wanted to scream, wanted to grab that damn suitcase out of his hand and throw it into the street, wanted to demand answers, to make them look me in the eye and explain how they could do this to me. But I didn't, because that wasn't who I was. I had spent my entire life being the responsible one, the composed one, the one who never made a scene. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing myself to smile. "Of course," I said, my voice unnervingly flat. "Let's get going then. If they wanted to prioritize Ethan over me, fine, but they wouldn't be enjoying it." The drive to the airport was suffocating. Ethan, completely oblivious to the tension, chattered away from the back seat. "Oh my God, Mom, did you see that TikTok about the vending machines in Japan? We have to check those out. And I heard there's this store that sells like 100 different types of Kit Kats. Do you think we'll have time to shop?" Mom chuckled. "Of course, sweetheart. We'll figure it out when we get there." When we get there, they didn't even realize that I wasn't part of that we anymore. Dad cleared his throat. "Thank you for driving us, Olivia. I know this probably feels unusual." I glanced at him in the rearview mirror, my expression unreadable. "Unusual," I echoed, letting the word hang between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. He shifted uncomfortably, probably regretting speaking at all. Ethan leaned forward, his voice grating against my nerves. "You're not mad, right? I mean, this is really big of you, letting me go instead." My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my knuckles ached. "Of course, Ethan," I said, my tone sharp as glass. "Enjoy the trip." By the time we reached the airport, my patience was hanging by a thread. As I unloaded their luggage, Mom pulled me into a quick hug. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. This means a lot to us." And to Ethan, "Sure, Mom." Ethan, already walking toward the terminal, waved a hand dismissively. "Later, sis." "You're the best." I stood there, watching them disappear into the crowd, my heart pounding with rage and betrayal. The moment they vanished from sight, I turned on my heel, marched back to my car, and gripped the steering wheel so hard my hands ached. I had two choices. I could go home, cry myself to sleep, accept that this was just how things were, or I could make damn sure they felt the consequences of what they had just done. With a slow, measured breath, I reached for my phone. A few taps later, I was logged into my travel accounts. Hotel reservations, canceled. Tours, refunded. First class upgrades, gone. My inbox flooded with confirmation emails, each one lifting the suffocating weight off my chest. They wanted to take Ethan instead of me? Fine. But they wouldn't be staying in luxury hotels or enjoying VIP experiences on my dime. I leaned back in my seat, exhaling as a sense of satisfaction settled over me. They could explain themselves to the front desk in Tokyo. I was done being their doormat. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles ached, staring at the departure terminal where my family had just disappeared. The rage in my chest burned hotter than anything I had ever felt before, a fire that threatened to consume me entirely. They had taken my dream, my sacrifice, and handed it to Ethan like it was nothing like. I was nothing, and they hadn't even hesitated. Not a second thought, not a flicker of guilt, just smiles, empty reassurances, and the audacity to expect me to accept it with grace. But that was their mistake. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to take it. I exhaled sharply, my hands shaking as I reached for my phone, my mind racing. If they thought they could erase me from this trip without consequences, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. My fingers moved fast, navigating through my travel accounts. The luxury 5-star hotel in Tokyo? Canceled. The meticulously planned private tours? Refunded. The first-class seat upgrades I had worked overtime to afford? Gone. With each click, a twisted sense of satisfaction coiled inside me, easing the tightness in my chest. They had chosen Ethan over me, and now they could deal with the fallout. Let them arrive in Japan and scramble for last-minute accommodations. Let them explain to the front desk why their names weren't on the reservation. Let them feel, just for once, what it was like to be left stranded. I had always been the one to fix things, to smooth over conflicts, to make sacrifices, to be the responsible one. But not this time. A part of me expected my phone to ring immediately, for Mom to call in a panic demanding answers. But it remained silent, They were still in the air, blissfully unaware of what was waiting for them. Good. Let them enjoy their flight. I drove home on autopilot, barely registering the streets, the traffic lights, the world moving around me. My mind was stuck in a loop, replaying every moment of that morning. Mom's condescending smile, Dad's silence, Ethan's smug little smirk. God, the way he had looked at me, like he had already won. Like he knew, deep down, that no matter what, our parents would always pick him. I slammed my car door shut harder than necessary when I pulled into my driveway, storming into my house without bothering to turn on the lights. My hands trembled as I threw my purse onto the couch, pacing the living room, trying to breathe through the storm inside me. I had done everything right. I had been the good daughter, the reliable one, the one who worked her ass off to make something of herself, who never asked for handouts, who never expected anything in return. And yet, in the end, I was still disposable, still the afterthought. My phone buzzed. I froze, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. Ethan. Of course. Ethan, you seriously think you won? A slow, humorless smile curled at the edges of my lips. Me, oh, I know I did. I could almost picture his face turning red with frustration, could imagine him pacing whatever fancy airport lounge he was sitting in, fuming that for once in his life, things hadn't gone his way. Another text. Ethan, you're gonna regret this. My smile widened. Me, you regret it more. Then I blocked his number. I exhaled, tossing my phone onto the couch and sinking into it, my body heavy with exhaustion. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one cleaning up their mess. For the first time, I wasn't bending over backward to make sure they were okay while I was left with nothing. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The hours passed slowly, the house unnervingly quiet. I kept expecting Mom to call, to unleash the guilt trip of the century. But the silence stretched on. I checked the flight tracker. They wouldn't land for a few more hours. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, my phone buzzed aggressively on the nightstand, shaking me awake. I blinked blearily, reaching for it, and when I saw the caller ID, a slow smirk spread across my face. Mom. Showtime. I let it ring a few times before answering, keeping my voice neutral. Morning. Her voice exploded through the speaker, sharp and frantic. Olivia, what did you do? I yawned, stretching lazily. What do you mean? The hotel says we don't have a reservation. We got here and they're telling us there's nothing booked under our names. The tours aren't booked. The flight upgrades, everything is gone. Her voice was bordering on hysterical now, and I could practically see her pacing the lobby, clutching her pearls in outrage. Weird. I should have felt guilty. But I didn't. Not even a little. I stood up, wandering into the kitchen, putting my phone on speaker as I poured myself a cup of coffee. I mused. That's so strange. I booked everything myself. I wonder what happened. Mom inhaled sharply. You know exactly what happened, Olivia. You canceled everything. I took a slow sip of my coffee, savoring the warmth. Well, yeah, I said casually. Since I wasn't going, I figured there was no point in keeping the reservations. Silence. Then a furious scoff. How could you do this? We're in a foreign country with nowhere to stay. No plans. Do you understand how stressful this is? I nearly laughed. Oh, I understand completely. You're being ridiculous. No, Mom, I said, my voice finally turning cold. You're the ones who were ridiculous. You took something that was mine, something I worked for, something I planned, and you gave it to Ethan like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. So no, I don't feel bad that you're struggling. I don't feel bad that you have to figure things out for once. I don't feel bad at all, she gasped. You're being spiteful. Maybe, I said smoothly. Or maybe I just finally decided I'm done being walked all over. She sputtered, trying to find the right words, but I wasn't interested in hearing them. I suggest you start looking for a budget hotel, I continued. Or maybe a nice little hostel. I hear they're great for travelers who didn't plan ahead. You are so selfish, I smiled. I learned from the best. Then I hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, waiting for the guilt to settle in. It never came. Instead, a sense of peace washed over me, deeper than anything I had ever felt before. For the first time in my life, I had put myself first, and I wasn't sorry. So there I was, standing in the airport, watching them disappear into the crowd without a second thought for me. They had no idea what was coming next. Now, I had two choices: let them walk all over me again, or teach them a lesson they'd never forget. What do you think I did? Drop a 1 in the comments if you think I forgave them and moved on, or drop a 2 if you think I made sure they paid for what they did. I leaned back against my kitchen counter, my fingers wrapped around a warm coffee mug as I stared at my phone, watching the notifications pile up. Missed calls, frantic texts, voicemail after voicemail. Mom, Dad, even Ethan. I had expected this, had braced for the inevitable fallout, but seeing it all unfold in real time sent a rush of satisfaction through my veins. I wasn't the one panicking now. I took a slow sip of coffee, scrolling through the messages. Mom, Olivia, call me now. This isn't funny! Dad, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Ethan, Y-O-U-R-E, a psycho. Fix this. I smirked. The audacity. They had made their choice. They had looked me in the eye, dismissed me, and sent my brother in my place without so much as a conversation. And now they wanted me to fix it? Not a chance. I let them stew for a while, letting the tension build. I knew exactly what was happening on their end, Mom fuming at the hotel desk, trying to argue her way into a reservation that no longer existed. Dad rubbing his temples, muttering about how Olivia always knows how to fix things. And Ethan, probably pacing somewhere, red-faced with entitlement, furious that for once in his life, he wasn't getting exactly what he wanted. Perfect. When my phone rang again, I let it vibrate against the counter before finally answering, my voice calm, almost bored. Yes? Mom's voice exploded through the speaker. Olivia! What the hell is wrong with you? Do you have any idea what you've done? I swirled the coffee in my mug. You're going to have to be more specific. The hotel won't check us in. The tours are gone. The airline won't reinstate our upgrades. We have no place to stay, no plans, nothing. And, she shrieked, her voice shrill. We're stranded in a foreign country. I exhaled, my patience razor thin. No, you're just experiencing what it's like to deal with a situation without me bailing you out. Silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. You selfish, ungrateful, oh, that's rich, I cut in, my voice turning icy. I'm selfish? After spending 3 years working my ass off to plan this trip? After saving every extra dollar to make sure this was perfect for you? And you had no problem replacing me with Ethan, without even telling me. She stammered, but I didn't give her a chance. You made your choice, I continued, my voice smooth, deliberate. Now live with it. You don't understand. No, I snapped, gripping the edge of the counter. You don't understand. You've never understood. You've spent my entire life making me feel like I had to earn my place in this family, while Ethan was just handed everything. And I let it happen, over and over again. I took a slow breath, but not this time. She was silent now. Good. Let her sit with that. Then Dad's voice broke in, quieter, controlled. Olivia, this isn't the way to handle this. I laughed. Oh? And what's the right way, Dad? Letting you all walk all over me? Just accepting that my sacrifices mean nothing? He sighed. We didn't mean to hurt you, but you did, I shot back. And the worst part? You don't even really care. You just want me to fix it. Olivia, he tried again, gentler now, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. We're your family. I exhaled sharply, the words cutting deeper than I wanted them to. Family. That word had meant so much to me for so long. It had kept me tethered to them, to their expectations, to their endless demands for patience, understanding, sacrifice. But not anymore. I took a slow sip of coffee, letting the silence stretch. "You know what's funny?" I said finally. "If I had done this to Ethan, if I had taken his trip, something he worked for, something he planned, you would have never let me hear the end of it. But because it's me, because it's always been me, you just expected me to roll over and take it." Dad hesitated. "Sweetheart, I'm done," I cut in, my voice steady. "Figure it out." And then, before he could say another word, I ended the call. My phone buzzed immediately, but I turned it over, silencing the screen. The weight in my chest lifted, just a little. For the first time in my life, I wasn't cleaning up their mess, and it felt damn good. I stared at my phone, watching the screen light up over and over, their desperate calls piling up like a house of cards ready to collapse. My mother, my father, even Ethan, though his messages were nothing but a string of insults and entitled demands. I should have felt something: guilt, regret, even a flicker of doubt, but all I felt was a slow, creeping satisfaction. They had never once thought about how their actions affected me, and now, for the first time in their lives, they were dealing with consequences they couldn't talk their way out of. I leaned back against the couch, my fingers drumming against the fabric. The silence in my house was almost unsettling, not because I missed their voices, but because I realized how much space they had taken up in my life. Every decision, every choice, every moment had somehow revolved around them. I had spent years being the fixer, the responsible one, the daughter who never asked for much because asking for anything meant being a burden. But I wasn't their fixer anymore. I scrolled through the texts again, my eyes narrowing at Ethan's latest message. "Ethan, you seriously think you're gonna get away with this? You have no idea what you've done," I smirked. Oh, but I did. I imagined them standing in the middle of a busy Tokyo street, exhausted, lost, and out of options. No luxury hotel waiting to greet them. No carefully curated itinerary to guide them. No reservations ensuring their trip was seamless. Just the weight of their own decisions, pressing down on them like an anvil. I wondered how long it had taken for the reality to truly sink in. Maybe at the check-in desk, when they were told there was no reservation under their name. Maybe when they tried to call customer service, only to realize every confirmation number had been wiped clean. Or perhaps it was when they opened their email and saw the cancellation notices staring back at them like a slap to the face. I imagined Ethan's reaction first, because of course, he would have been the loudest. He was probably pacing, running a hand through his hair, his entitled frustration bubbling over into rage. My mother would be frantically trying to reason with the hotel staff, putting on that polite but condescending voice she used whenever she wanted something for free. And my father? He would be standing in the background, sighing, rubbing his temples, muttering about how I was being dramatic. They had no idea what real drama looked like. My phone vibrated again, another call from my father. This time, I picked up, letting the line hang in silence for a moment before speaking. "You're calling an awful lot for someone who didn't think I was important enough to include in this trip." A deep sigh. "Olivia, this is ridiculous. We're in another country with no hotel, no plans." "Sounds rough," I cut in, my voice dripping with faux sympathy. "Olivia." His tone hardened. "You've made your point. Now fix it." I laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "Fix it? Dad, you've spent my entire life treating me like I was second place to Ethan, and now, suddenly you need me? Now I'm important? This isn't about importance," he snapped. "This is about family. And right now, your mother is incredibly upset. Of course. It was never about me. Never about what they had done. Just about how uncomfortable their lives were now that I wasn't bending over backward to accommodate them." "Good," I said simply. "What?" His voice was tight, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I said good," I repeated. "You should feel this. You should know what it's like to be tossed aside like an afterthought. You should sit in this discomfort. And ask yourselves why I'm done being your doormat. A beat of silence stretched between us. Then, finally, he sighed again. You can't just abandon your family. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Oh, you mean like how you abandoned me when you decided Ethan deserved my trip more than I did? That kind of abandonment? That's not the same, he muttered. Because it's happening to you now? I countered. Because it's inconvenient for you? Because for once, I'm the one holding the power and you don't know what to do with that? He hesitated. Look, let's just be reasonable. We need to move forward. I leaned back against the couch, shaking my head. You don't get it, do you? I am moving forward, just not with you. A sharp exhale. Olivia, enjoy Japan, I interrupted. I hear it's beautiful this time of year. And then, without waiting for a response, I hung up. The moment I set my phone down, an unexpected wave of relief washed over me. The old me would have felt guilty, would have second-guessed everything, would have considered fixing it just to keep the peace. But I wasn't that person anymore. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one left cleaning up their mess. And I never would be again. I stared at my phone, watching the messages roll in one after another, each more desperate than the last. My father had stopped calling, which meant he was either too frustrated to keep trying, or he had finally realized I wasn't going to pick up. My mother, though, she was relentless. Text after text, voicemail after voicemail, each one dripping with manufactured guilt. The same manipulative tone I had spent my whole life falling for. Mom, Olivia, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Mom, we're in a completely different country, and we have nowhere to stay. Please, just help us fix this. Mom, your father is so upset. You're breaking his heart. Mom, this is childish, Olivia. Be the bigger person. That one made me laugh. Be the bigger person? That's what they always told me whenever they needed me to swallow my pain and take the high road. Funny how that only ever applied when I was the one suffering. I took a deep breath, stretching my fingers before typing back. Me, you didn't think I was important enough to bring on the trip, so why am I suddenly important enough to fix it? I hit send and tossed my phone onto the couch, letting the silence settle in. The power shift was palpable. For once, they were the ones scrambling, the ones left out in the cold, the ones feeling the weight of being discarded. And I had never felt lighter. I imagined them standing in a dimly lit hotel lobby, bags at their feet, exhaustion pulling at their faces as they argued with a front desk worker who had no solutions for them. I could almost hear Ethan whining, could see the way my mother's lips would tighten, how she'd glance at my father, expecting him to fix it, only to realize that this time, there was no backup plan. No Olivia to smooth things over. Good. The thought sent a thrill through me, but it wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, about balance. They had always operated under the assumption that I would bend, that I would take whatever crumbs they tossed my way and be grateful. But not this time. A notification popped up, a voicemail. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. I pressed play. Olivia, my mother's voice crackled through the speaker, breathless, frustrated, teetering on the edge of anger. I hope you're happy. I really do. You have no idea what you've done. Do you think this is funny? Stranding your own family like this? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? We're in a foreign country, with nothing, no hotel, no tours, nothing. Your father is furious. Ethan as well. Never mind. But I hope this little tantrum of yours was worth it, because when we get home, we're going to have a serious conversation about your attitude. I scoffed, shaking my head. Unbelievable. Even now, even when they were the ones suffering, my mother still managed to make herself the victim. Still acted like I was the unreasonable one. I deleted the voicemail without another thought. A few minutes later, another text came in, this one from Ethan. Ethan, do you seriously think you won? You're just proving how selfish you are. This is why Mom and Dad always put me first. You're not a team player. I let out a slow breath. The arrogance. The entitlement. He actually believed he was better. that this was justified, that somehow this was my fault. I smirked as I typed my response. Me, oh, I know I won. His reply was almost immediate. Ethan, you're gonna regret this. I rolled my eyes. Me, no, Ethan, you regret it more. Then I blocked his number. I leaned back against the couch, exhaling. The weight that had been pressing down on me for years, the burden of being the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who was always expected to clean up after them, was finally gone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one fixing their mess. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely free. I sat on my couch, phone still in my hand, my heartbeat finally steadying after blocking Ethan's number. The silence in my apartment was thick, but not in a suffocating way. It was the kind of silence that came after a storm, the kind that felt like a moment of peace after years of chaos. I had spent so much of my life being the fixer, the one who smoothed things over, the one who put herself last for the sake of keeping the family together. But not anymore. I knew the moment I canceled everything that they would panic, that they would scramble, that they would turn on me the second they realized they had lost control. And I was right. My mother's furious voicemails, my father's weak attempts to reason with me, Ethan's pure entitlement, it all confirmed what I had known deep down but never wanted to admit. They had never truly valued me. I was convenient, useful, dependable, but I had never been important, and that was the hardest pill to swallow. Another text came in, this time from my father. Dad, Olivia, we need to talk. Your mother is very upset. You've made your point. Now let's fix this. I stared at the message, a slow smirk curling on my lips. I've made my point? That was the problem, wasn't it? They thought this was about me throwing a tantrum. They still believed I was just acting out, that I would come to my senses, that I would fix the mess they had created. They didn't understand that this wasn't a temporary rebellion. This was the moment I finally put myself first. I let the message sit there unanswered. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. Olivia, honey, please. My father's voice came through, softer this time, as if he thought appealing to my emotions would work. We didn't mean to hurt you. This has gotten out of hand. Your mother is really struggling out here. And Ethan, well, he's furious, but you know how he is. Look, we can work this out when we get home. Just call the hotel, rebook the reservations, and let's put this behind us. I clenched my jaw. Rebook the reservations? That was what this was about. Not an apology, not regret, not even acknowledgement of what they had done. They didn't care about making things right, they just wanted their luxury vacation back. I deleted the voicemail. The irony of it all was almost laughable. They had taken my trip, dismissed me like an afterthought, and now they were stranded, scrambling to figure things out without me. And instead of apologizing, instead of realizing how deeply they had hurt me, they were still expecting me to fix it. Not a chance. My phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't them. It was Lauren. Lauren, so, are you actually letting them suffer, or are you secretly about to cave? I rolled my eyes, but I smiled. Me, I'm actually letting them suffer. Lauren, finally. Took you long enough. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Lauren had been telling me for years to stand up for myself. She had watched me bend over backward for my family time and time again, always being the one to sacrifice, to make peace, to hold everything together. And every time I got burned, she was the one who reminded me that it was my own fault for expecting anything different. She had been right all along. Me, I feel, weird, not guilty, but something. Lauren, that's just your brain rewiring itself. You're so used to feeling responsible for their happiness that now that you're not, it feels wrong, but it's not. It's them who are wrong, not you. I stared at the message, reading it over and over. She was right. I had spent so long carrying the weight of my family's dysfunction that the idea of stepping back, of not fixing things, felt foreign. But the more I let myself sit in that discomfort, the more I realized how freeing it was. I wasn't responsible for them. I didn't owe them anything. I was allowed to choose me, and I was never going back. A slow, deep breath filled my lungs as I let my phone rest beside me. I could still imagine them, Ethan fuming, my mother on the verge of a meltdown, my father scrambling for control. But none of it was my problem anymore. For once in my life, I had no intention of making it my problem. And God, that felt good. I stared at my phone as it buzzed relentlessly on the coffee table. Call after call, text after text, each one more desperate than the last. They had finally realized what I had done, and now they were scrambling. A part of me had expected them to figure things out by now, to book a new hotel, to adjust their plans, to handle it like actual adults. But no. Instead, they were panicking, stranded in a foreign country without the safety net they had always taken for granted, without me. I let it ring. The voicemail notifications piled up, my mother's voice growing more frantic with every message. Olivia, this isn't funny. The hotel says our reservation was canceled, and we don't have anywhere to stay. We're standing in the middle of the city with nowhere to go. Do you understand what you've done? I exhaled, my fingers drumming against my knee. Oh, I understood exactly what I had done. Another voicemail. This time, my father. Olivia, we need to talk. We know you're upset, but this is too far. You've made your point. Now, let's be reasonable and fix this. Fix this? A bitter laugh escaped my lips. That was always the expectation, wasn't it? No matter what they did, no matter how badly they treated me, I was always supposed to be the bigger person, the one who let things go, the one who patched everything up and made sure no one suffered the consequences of their own actions. But this time? No. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through the endless messages. Ethan's texts were the most predictable and titled, "Furious, absolutely certain that I would eventually fold." Ethan, you're a psycho. Do you know how humiliating this is? Ethan, you seriously think you won? You're just being petty. Ethan, just fix it already. My jaw clenched. He still didn't get it. None of them did. I opened the text thread and typed out a simple response. Me? No. Then, for good measure, I blocked his number. A few moments later, another call came in. My father, again. Against my better judgment, I answered. The second I picked up, his voice was tense. Olivia, Dad. My voice was flat, emotionless. There was a long silence before he sighed. Listen, I know you're upset, and I get it. We could have handled things better, but leaving us like this, canceling everything, that's not like you. I leaned back against the couch, shaking my head. You don't know what's like me, Dad. You never did. Another sigh. Sweetheart, we're family. This shouldn't be about getting even. I let out a cold, humorless laugh. Funny. You didn't seem too worried about family when you replaced me without even asking. His voice dropped into that carefully measured, almost condescending tone he always used when he was trying to guilt-trip me. Olivia, your mother is in tears. She's been crying all night. Are you happy now? I clenched my jaw. There it was. The same tactic they had always used: emotional manipulation. Guilt. Painting themselves as the victims while completely ignoring the fact that they had done this to themselves. I took a slow, deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. She's crying because she got caught, Dad. Not because she's sorry. He hesitated. She thought she could take something from me and walk away without consequences. I continued. You all did. And now you're upset because, for the first time in your lives, I didn't let it slide. His voice hardened. So what? You're punishing us? I let the silence stretch between us before answering. No, Dad. I'm teaching you a lesson. His breath hitched. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head, trying to figure out how to regain control of the situation. But he couldn't. Not this time. His voice was quieter when he finally spoke. We don't have anywhere to go, Olivia. For the first time in my life, I felt absolutely nothing. No sympathy, no guilt, no obligation to fix it. I shrugged. Sounds like you should have thought about that before you got on the plane. His breath came out in a sharp exhale, a mix of frustration and disbelief. You're really doing this? I already did. A long silence stretched between us before he muttered, I hope this was worth it. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. Oh, it was. Then I hung up. For the first time in my life, I wasn't cleaning up their mess. And God, it felt amazing. I sat in the quiet of my apartment. The only sound, the rhythmic tapping of my fingers against the coffee table. My phone lay beside me, its screen black and silent. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was the one ignoring them, not the other way around. It was a strange, almost surreal feeling knowing that I had flipped the script entirely. They were the ones panicking, scrambling, desperate for a solution. And I was here, sipping coffee, enjoying the kind of peace they had never let me have. Then the silence shattered. A knock at my door, loud, urgent. I froze, my heart kicking into high gear. They wouldn't know. They couldn't. They were still thousands of miles away, right? But something in my gut twisted, a deep-rooted instinct telling me to brace myself. I pushed off the couch, walking to the door with slow, deliberate steps. Peering through the peephole, my stomach dropped. Lauren. I exhaled, a mix of relief and irritation bubbling up. I should have known they'd drag her into this. I swung the door open, crossing my arms. Let me guess. They called you. Lauren's expression was unreadable as she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. They didn't just call me. Olivia, your mom's been leaving voicemails every hour. Your dad texted me 3 times. And Ethan? She scoffed. Shaking her head, Ethan had the nerve to DM me on Instagram, asking if I couldn't talk some sense into you. I rolled my eyes, heading back to the couch. Of course he did. Lauren followed, sinking into the armchair across from me. So, are you okay? That was the thing. I was okay. Better than okay. But part of me knew what was coming next, the inevitable guilt trip. The lecture about taking things too far. The same old cycle. I leaned back, studying her face. You think I should fix this, don't you? She hesitated. I think they deserve this. But I also know you, Liv. You're not the kind of person who lets things fester like this. I snorted. No, I'm the kind of person who lets people walk all over me and then cleans up their mess after. Her lips pressed into a thin line. That's not what I meant. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Look, Lauren, I know how this looks, but I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the trip. It never was. It's about everything. Every time they've dismissed me. Every time they've chosen Ethan over me. Every time I've been expected to just suck it up and deal with it. And now, for once, they're dealing with it. Lauren studied me for a long moment. And you don't feel even a little guilty? I hesitated just for a second, and that was enough. Lauren sighed, leaning forward. Liv, I love you, and I support you. But at some point, you have to ask yourself, are you proving a point, or are you just making sure they hurt as much as you did? I swallowed hard. That question sat uncomfortably in my chest. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up. Mom calling. I stared at it. Lauren's voice softened. Maybe just. Hear her out. I let the call ring out. A voicemail popped up immediately after. With a slow, steadying breath, I pressed play. Olivia. My mother's voice was hoarse, strained. I don't know what else to say. We're at the airport now, trying to figure out flights home. Your father is exhausted. Ethan is furious. And me. She let out a shaky breath. I don't even know how to feel anymore. I clenched my jaw, waiting for the inevitable turn. The guilt, the manipulation. I never wanted it to be like this, she continued, quieter now. I never thought you would just walk away from us. There it was. Lauren was watching me carefully, reading every flicker of emotion on my face. The voicemail continued. I don't know, Olivia. Maybe we should have handled things differently. Maybe I should have listened more. Maybe, she exhaled sharply, maybe you were right to do this. That stopped me cold. For a full 5 seconds, I just sat there, stunned. My mother had just admitted fault. She had just acknowledged it. Lauren's eyes widened. Wow. The voicemail crackled as my mother spoke again. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve that. But if you ever want to talk, I'll be here. A long silence, then click. I stared at my phone. Lauren leaned forward, voice cautious. Liv. I exhaled slowly, setting the phone down. My mind was racing, a storm of emotions clashing inside me. For years, I had been waiting for those words, for any sign that they saw me, that I wasn't just some background character in my own family. And now, here it was, an admission, a crack in the foundation of their indifference. So why didn't it feel as satisfying as I thought it would? I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling the weight of my mother's voicemail pressing down on me. For years, I had imagined what it would be like to hear her admit she was wrong, to have her finally acknowledge the way she and my father had treated me. And now that it had happened, I didn't feel the overwhelming satisfaction I had expected. Instead, there was this strange, hollow ache in my chest. It wasn't guilt. No, I had nothing to feel guilty about. It was something deeper, a realization that even with her words, even with this moment, nothing could undo the years of being overlooked, replaced, discarded. Lauren watched me, her expression unreadable. So, what now? I let out a slow breath, setting my phone down on the table. I don't know. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. Do you want to talk to her? I thought about that for a long moment. Did I? The truth was, part of me wanted to believe this was a turning point, that maybe this meant they would change, that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something better. But the other part of me, the part that had spent years being disappointed, knew better. Words were easy. Words could be spoken in desperation, in fear, in the aftermath of losing something they had taken for granted. But words didn't erase actions. Words didn't undo the way they had thrown me aside like I was nothing. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. I don't think I do. Lauren nodded slowly. That's fair. I ran my fingers through my hair, my mind still spinning. I don't know how to move forward from this. Lauren tilted her head, considering. Well, what do you want? That question hit me harder than I expected, because for the first time in my life, I had the power to decide. I wasn't waiting for them to throw me scraps of affection. I wasn't bending over backward to earn their approval. I was standing on my own, making choices for myself, and that realization sent a shiver of something through me, something terrifying but also exhilarating. I wanted freedom. I wanted peace. I wanted to live my life without the constant weight of their expectations, their manipulations, their ability to make me feel like I was never enough. And now, for the first time, I could. I stood up abruptly, grabbing my phone and walking toward the window. The city stretched out before me, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. A new chapter waiting to be written, a life waiting to be lived. Lauren watched me, a small smile tugging at her lips. You're thinking about it, aren't you? I turned, raising a brow. About what? She smirked. Taking that trip. I blinked. What trip? The one you want. The one that was never about them. She crossed her arms. You spent 3 years saving, planning, dreaming of something amazing. And yeah, it didn't happen the way you thought it would. But why let them take that from you? Why not make it yours again? My breath caught in my throat. Italy. I had always wanted to go. Not because it was fancy or extravagant, but because something about it had always called to me. The history, the food, the sheer romance of wandering through cobblestone streets with no plan, no obligations, no expectations. A slow, hesitant smile pulled at my lips. You think I should just go? Lauren shrugged. Why not? You have the time, you have the money, and let's be real, you have zero reason to stick around here waiting for your parents to figure their crap out. She wasn't wrong. I had spent so much of my life waiting for them to notice me, waiting for them to choose me, waiting for them to love me the way I had loved them. And every time I had been left disappointed. But this was something I could do for me. No expectations, no compromises, just mine. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my dad. Dad, your mother is heartbroken. She wants to talk. I stared at the text for a long moment. Then, without hesitation, I blocked the number. Lauren let out a soft laugh. That felt good, didn't it? I grinned. You have no idea. The next morning, I booked the flight. 2 weeks. Just me, a suitcase, and an entire country to explore on my terms. No schedules, no responsibilities, no one else to worry about but me. It felt surreal. Like I was finally taking control of my own life instead of waiting for someone to give me permission. The day before I left, I got one last text from Ethan. Ethan? So that's it? You're really done with us? I stared at the message, feeling nothing but a deep, unwavering certainty. Olivia, yeah, I am. Then I turned off my phone, tossed it in my bag, and stepped onto the plane. As the wheels lifted off the ground, a strange, light feeling settled over me. For the first time in my life, I was free. So, in the end, they were stranded, humiliated, and forced to finally see what life was like without me cleaning up their mess. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. But here's the real question: what would you do in my shoes? Would you have let them suffer, or would you have caved under the pressure? And more importantly, have you ever been treated like an afterthought by people who were supposed to care about you? Drop your story in the comments. I'm reading every single one. In America, we're taught that family comes first, but what happens when family treats you like an afterthought? I spent years sacrificing, waiting for recognition that never came. The truth? You can love people and still walk away when they refuse to respect you. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're survival. If someone constantly takes advantage of your kindness, it's time to put yourself first. You don't owe loyalty to people who see you as replaceable. The moment I stopped waiting for them to change, I took back my life. And let me tell you, it feels damn good to be free.